levels. Now let's look at the largest and fastest growing part of the federal budget, our nation's mandatory spending policies. How fast are they growing?
By 2019, we'll be spending 92% of all the revenues we receive on entitlements and payment on the national debt, leaving just a little sliver left for all other expenditures of our government, including our national defense, education, public safety, and all those items that the American public know we need to have.
Either we will have to cut discretionary spending sharply, or we will continue to run large and growing budget deficits.
This is a growing problem over time. It wasn't created by the recession. It wasn't created by the financial crisis. It was created by decisions we made quite a long time ago when we created so-called entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
This Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 30 million of our citizens against the loss of a job and against poverty-stricken old age.
When the program began in 1935, the normal retirement age was 65. Life expectancy was around 62. That normal retirement age stayed at 65 for decades, even as people were living longer and longer. Life expectancy today is 78. Over the coming years, the number of retired workers will increase dramatically, doubling between now and 2040. Not only will there be more retirees, but they will be living longer.
It just promises more than it can afford to pay for future generations. Now, I'm not talking about way off in the future. I'm talking about people who are in the workforce now.
There are a lot of real solutions out there. I think that the hopelessness comes from it seems so inevitable, it seems like there's real doom and gloom, like there's nothing we can ultimately do. But when people start participating in those solutions, they get an idea of what they are. Whether it's raising the retirement age, whether it's increasing payroll taxes, whether it's targeting benefits towards people that need them most.
Compared to healthcare reform and all these other huge problems that we face, Social Security is probably relatively easy. I say relatively.
One way to fix Social Security is to increase the retirement age over the next 10 to 15 years and index it for future improvements in life expectancy. If done gradually, those who are already retired or nearing retirement age will not be affected by the changes at all, and it will give younger Americans time to plan for the adjustments.
Slowly, over time, adjust the retirement age. After all, when Social Security was first initiated, people weren't living much past 65. Now we've got people living to 100.
Now that people keep their vitality past 65, I think it's important to have people working and contributing to the economy and saving well past 65.
Yet another option is to raise more revenue for Social Security.
We need to get more money into Social Security.
But Social Security is in financial difficulty.
Cash deficits for Social Security are expected to escalate in the future to reach an estimated $300 billion in 2025 and $1 trillion in 2048.
For the long term, we know there is an unfunded liability there that's going to have to be met. And so it's very much in our interest to reform Social Security so it's there for the future.
Today, Social Security payroll taxes are only collected on wages and salaries up to $106,800. People who make more don't pay any taxes on earnings above that ceiling.
We can raise the payroll tax a little bit, particularly raising the ceiling of the earnings to which it applies.
If, for example, this ceiling was raised from $106,800 to $181,500, a significant amount of revenue can be brought into Social Security, thereby decreasing future cash deficits. Smaller increases would also help, but not as much.
So we need to raise the threshold of salary level that people pay into Social Security.
We should review benefit costs. One area to consider is the automatic growth in benefits, which comes from two sources. First, at retirement, a worker's security benefits reflect lifetime earnings, which are automatically adjusted for inflation and for improvements in the standard of living. Second, after retirement, Social Security benefits are adjusted for changes in the cost of living, or COLA. Social Security reforms could be designed to preserve benefits for lower-income citizens who can't afford to save as much, while reducing benefits for the better off. For example, We could change the formula that sets the benefit levels so that the benefits of higher income workers would reflect inflation over their working years, but not the overall improvements in the standard of living. Those who earned higher incomes would still receive benefits, but they would receive less. The level of benefits for lower income retirees would continue to reflect both inflation and improvements in standard of living. We should continue to adjust retirees' benefits for changes in the cost of living, but the current COLA overstates the impact of inflation, and its accuracy could be improved. That would reduce costs while still allowing benefits to keep up with the cost of living.
Social Security has had an adjustment so that it keeps up with the cost of living. That is a tremendous additional draw on the fund, as is the huge increase in the number of people who are covered.
A modest reduction in the cost of living adjustment would contribute to the overall solution. A combination of these reforms, gradually introduced over time, would be relatively easy to implement and result in a Social Security system that is sustainable for generations to come.
I think Social Security reform is not only urgent, but it's not very difficult.
And by the time today's young people are eligible for Social Security, the program will be on a much sounder footing.
But what we need to do really is to tackle Social Security, and then we can go on to bigger and tougher things. The football analogy is, let's put some points on the board.